The air was thick with tension. A young woman, her tattered cloak clinging to her, and fear etched across her face, lay sprawled on the rough ground. Beside her rested a magic staff, its faintly glowing surface a silent witness to a battle recently fought. But the battle was far from over. A chilling darkness loomed above her, and from it emerged a sight that would freeze the blood of even the bravest warrior: a gaping mouth. The seasoned warrior, eyes blazing with determination, lunges forward. His sword arcs through the air, finding its mark in the monster's chest. The beast roars in pain. The monstrous bull-like creature, riddled with wounds, roared in defiance as a sword pierced its chest. Its eyes bulged in agony. The monster was defeated. An unexpected transformation began. Its body started to glow, until the creature's form began to disintegrate. The once mighty beast dissolved into a swirling mass of shimmering orbs, a mesmerizing spectacle of energy before finally dissipating into nothingness. In their place, a single sword, identical to the one that had pierced the creature, materialized, its blade gleaming with light. A female adventurer, her face flushed with a mixture of annoyance and embarrassment, stood amidst the jagged rock formations. Her clothes were now tattered and torn, a stark reminder of a recent battle. "Don't waste your time talking," she snapped. "Let's just get back to the surface." The other male adventurer sighed and remarked that it was just a common item, referring to the Minotaur's dropped loot. "Still, it's not that easy to obtain," another adventurer added. "They say you could hunt down 50 Minotaurs and still not get one." The female adventurer, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment, mumbled, "Don't look at me, you idiot." Meanwhile, the male adventurer, rubbing his face where her staff had struck him, said, "Huh? This time we should head to the 25th level." Glancing at her, he added nonchalantly, "It's not even that big of a deal." 1 hour had passed somewhere in the labyrinth. A swirling mass of dark energy began to form on the ground in the center of the corridor, its edges growing larger and more intense. The labyrinth is a place where creatures are born from the walls and floor, not from a mother's womb. They appear and disappear, the same species popping up at different times. These creatures resemble living things, but they don't truly live. They don't carry memories or experiences, each one a blank slate. They are constantly reborn, but never truly alive. It's an entity that resembles a living being, but is not truly alive. Therefore, the monster in the labyrinth doesn't evolve, inherit, or even grow. A monstrous figure emerged, its bull-like head held high, a massive axe clutched in its hand. It was a creature of raw power, a testament to the labyrinth's unyielding nature. But this was no ordinary beast. This was a newly born boss, the level 10 boss room, a fresh challenge that had sprung up from the very heart of this cursed place, Sazerdan Labyrinth, Kingdom of Valdemust. Its powerful frame taut with anticipation. 2 massive axes, crudely crafted but deadly in their intent, were gripped in its hands. The creature's eyes, wide and filled with a primal hunger, burned in the dim light. Its menacing expression, and the sheer power that radiates from its very being. Its eyes, burning with a primal hunger, seemed to pierce the darkness, seeking out its prey. Then its gaze fell upon something that stirred within the darkness, a pool of water, its surface shimmering faintly in the dim light. It thrust its head into the water, gulping eagerly. Once it finished, it stretched its arms wide, and its teeth scraped together intensely. Then, with a sudden, primal roar that echoed through the labyrinth, the creature slammed its axes into the ground, the impact sending tremors through the very stones. The sound was a testament to its raw power, a warning to any who dared to challenge it. After he wrecked the surroundings, his face was filled with intense fury. Then, as if sensing something, the creature's gaze shifted. The creature's nostrils flared, its senses heightened as it detected the faintest hint of something. The female warrior, her face obscured by the shadows, stood her ground, her hand resting on her sword. A female warrior in a white dress and black tights wields a sword as she leaps through the air toward the floor boss. The only visible part of the creature, Its eye is filled with a swirling vortex of energy. The shadow of the floor boss is crouched and appears to be charging up energy. The young female warrior, her eyes glinting with determination, stood before the entrance to the 10th level. "That's the boss of the 10th level," she whispered, barely audible. "The Minotaur." Her adventurer's ID, a small, circular pendant hanging around her neck, caught the faint light. The inscription revealed her name, level, and class. Elena, level 16, class D. A novice, still new to the depths of dungeons, Elena was fueled by a thirst for adventure and a desire to prove herself. The Minotaur stomped its hooves, sending a resounding tremor through the ground. Elena could feel the sheer power and overwhelming pressure radiating from the beast. Fear written all over her face, Elena remarked. "That Minotaur is massive, and it's radiating an incredible amount of pressure." She questioned, "Is it rage or hatred?" Elena took a deep breath, calming herself down as she reassured herself. "It's okay. I can handle this." She spoke about her preparations for the battle with confidence. Equipped and well-trained, she had prepared thoroughly, bringing ample recovery magic along. She was ready for this challenge. If she could defeat the Minotaur on her own, she was certain she would be promoted to rank C, unlocking more lucrative quests. Holding her sword, she believed that this victory would not only secure her place, but also restore her father's strength. In her thoughts, she saw her parents, understanding that her fight was not just for her own glory, but to support her family. Elena reassured herself, saying, "It's okay. I have the protection of the talisman and the gods on my side. Pray hard, pray from the depths of your heart, and it will be answered." She invoked Bora, the goddess of earth, asking for protection. With confidence in her abilities, she faced the Minotaur, which roared with rage and prepared to attack. The battle began. The Minotaur swung a massive axe at Elena, who deftly dodged the attack. With a fierce scream, Elena launched her own assault, determinedly standing her ground despite the chaos around her. The Minotaur swung its fist at Elena, but she struck at its wrist with her sword. However, the blade barely cut the Minotaur's tough skin. With a powerful counterattack, the Minotaur's fist swung towards Elena, who narrowly dodged the brute force of the blow. The Minotaur struck her again, but the blow only grazed her clothes. Elena shouted her battle cry and swung her sword at the Minotaur's hand once more. This time, with renewed power, her sword made a small cut on the Minotaur's hand. The Minotaur, feeling the sting of pain, roared in rage and prepared to attack again with its other hand. The Minotaur's attack missed once more. Seizing the opportunity, Elena struck at its hand again. This time, the Minotaur felt the pain and roared in anger. Elena quickly stepped back to gain distance, but the enraged Minotaur charged toward her with renewed fury. The Minotaur charged at Elena with tremendous speed and strength. Elena readied herself, and, at the right moment, quickly jumped to evade the attack. The Minotaur missed and struck the rock behind her. Elena realized that the information she had was accurate. Minotaurs are strong but slow and straightforward. They mainly swing their axes, poke, or lunge with their horns. There's nothing difficult about it, just watch their every move, anticipate their attacks, and keep targeting their arms. Elena focused her attacks on the Minotaur's arms, thinking that if she could disarm it by removing the axes from both hands, it would be a significant victory. Shouting in determination, she readied herself for another strike. With a heavy and powerful swing, Elena finally managed to sever one of the Minotaur's hands. The Minotaur shrieked in agony and pain. Elena, her face reflecting triumph, knew she had achieved a significant victory. Victory was short-lived for Elena. As her guard was down, the Minotaur, in a surprising move, attacked her with its severed hand. The blow was so powerful it sent Elena flying against the dungeon wall. She crashed hard, slamming into the stone. Despite the pain from losing its hand, the Minotaur, still breathing in rage, prepared for its next move. Elena groaned on the ground in pain as she saw the Minotaur preparing its next attack. It took a deep breath, gathering as much air as it could. Elena, shocked by the sight, recalled an adventurer's warning. If a minotaur begins to take a deep breath, it signals a special attack. The attack, known as frenzy, was notorious for its viciousness. If she got hit, it would drain all her strength and leave her in a state of inhibition and dysfunction for a short while. In a panic, Alina quickly checked her potions, realizing that a single hit from the frenzy attack could turn the battle in the Minotaur's favor. But as she reached for a potion, she was horrified to find that all her carefully prepared potions had been shattered and destroyed. The bottles were bent, and their contents had leaked onto her clothes. Alina was deeply shocked as she recalled how the potions had been damaged when she hit the wall. In the distance, the Minotaur was now preparing to launch its devastating attack frenzy. As the Minotaur prepared its attack, its mouth opened wide, its body tensed with bulging veins. The air around them thickened with pressure. When it launched its attack, a roar erupted that transformed into a wave of sound. The wave grew larger as it advanced toward Alina, who lay on the ground, unable to move. Alina was hit by the attack, her eyes wide with shock and fear. As the frenzy struck her, her face twisted in agony, and she collapsed to the ground, dazed and slipping into unconsciousness. Seizing the opportunity, the Minotaur charged at Alina with its horns. The powerful force sent her flying through the air like a ragdoll. As she spun and twisted midair, she crashed violently to the ground, the impact creating a shockwave. Alina lay on the ground, her body battered and bruised, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She watched the Minotaur approach, its slow, deliberate movements adding to the terror that gripped her heart. The Minotaur, a hulking beast of muscle and rage, stood over Alina, its heavy footsteps shaking the very ground. Each step brought it closer, the air around it crackling with raw power. Its eyes, burning with a primal fury, were fixed on Alina. Its massive horns pointed menacingly towards the sky. She knew she had no chance. The Minotaur was too powerful, its strength beyond anything she had ever encountered. As the Minotaur's shadow fell over her, a new thought struck Alina. She glanced at the exit, realizing she had to escape. She knew the boss couldn't leave the room and understood that it's important for adventurers to recognize when to retreat and accept defeat. With a grunt of effort, Alina forced her broken legs to move, dragging her battered body towards the exit. Every step was a testament to her will, defying the pain that threatened to overwhelm her. Yet she pressed on, driven by a primal instinct to survive and escape the Minotaur's clutches. Just as she neared the exit, the Minotaur caught up with her. Swinging its axe with its right hand, the Minotaur struck Alina's legs, cutting them cleanly. Blood splattered everywhere as Alina was thrown by the force of the blow, demonstrating the Minotaur's overwhelming power. Alina screams in agony and pain as she tumbles and skids across the ground. The Minotaur continues to pursue her, its heavy footsteps growing louder and closer. Trembling with desperation, Alina crawls toward the exit. With the Minotaur preparing to strike again, Alina musters all her strength to escape the room. Alina narrowly escapes the room, and the Minotaur, furious at losing its prey, slams its axes against the exit wall. The wall, adorned with mysterious runes, crackles but remains intact despite the powerful blows. The Minotaur's relentless attacks only serve to repel its strikes. Consumed by rage, the ground shakes with its anger as it grits its teeth and pounds its hooves in frustration. In its rage, the Minotaur inadvertently stomps toward the wall that confines it within the boss room. The contact burns its hooves, causing it intense pain. Shocked, the Minotaur stumbles back, breathing heavily and sweating profusely. As the Minotaur realizes that Alina has escaped and that it can't pursue its prey, its fury intensifies. The creature's black eyes, now blazing with fiery pupils, reflect its frustration. Staggering back, it continues to seethe with rage, unable to chase after the one who slipped through its grasp. Alina, now a little distance from the entrance, manages to tend to her injuries. She wraps cloth around her wounded legs to staunch the bleeding and uses another piece of cloth to muffle her cries of pain. With trembling hands, she binds her injured legs with a rope, trying to stop the bleeding and stabilize herself. Once Alina finishes tending to her wounds, she lets out a sigh of relief and slides down the wall she's been leaning against. Overcome with agony and despair, she curses her humiliating defeat and weeps, the weight of her suffering and frustration pressing heavily on her. Alina pounds her chest, a sad expression etched on her face. In her anguish, she vows not to give up, determined that surrender is not an option. As she clutches the pendant of the earth goddess Bora, which has offered her protection, she pleads for the strength to defeat the Minotaur and retrieve something crucial she needs. She begs goddess Bora to grant her the power she desperately requires just this once. As she prays, the pendant begins to glow and emit a soft, whistling sound. Suddenly, the door crackled as a strong force leaked into the air, making the room feel dense with energy. Alina's heart skipped a beat as she froze in place, her eyes wide with shock. Whatever was happening on the other side, the door seemed on the verge of collapse, struggling to contain it. The energy surged, intensifying by the second, crackling around the edges of the entrance. Alina's breath hitched as her gaze was fixed on the door, unsure of what was about to happen. Then, without warning, a hand began to emerge from the rippling air just beyond the threshold. Alina staggered back, her body trembling as the impossible unfolded before her. As they say, be careful what you wish for. When the Minotaur's half-body emerged from the barrier, he strained against it, forcing his way out. The energy tried to hold him back, but he pushed through, his sheer strength defying its pull. In exchange for his escape, the Minotaur's skin began to burn all over, the air filled with the sharp, sizzling sound of scorching skin. Yet, he endured the torment without hesitation. His muscles rippled with each painful movement, and still, he pressed forward. Alina could only watch in utter shock, frozen by the sight unfolding before her. The Minotaur roared, his voice echoing through the room, as nearly all of his massive body broke free from the prison that had once confined him. Now, the Minotaur's entire body was outside, having fought its way free from the barrier. Covered in burns and injuries from the escape, he collapsed heavily onto the ground. Alina's face was a picture of despair as she struggled to comprehend the unfolding scene. She couldn't believe that the boss had actually emerged from the boss room. The thought was inconceivable to her, and her mind raced with the horrifying reality that this monster, now fully unleashed, seemed impossible to face. Without warning, the Minotaur reached out and grabbed Alina, despite his injuries and weakened state. He lay on the ground, breathing heavily with each pained gasp, yet he clung to her with a relentless grip. The Minotaur, enduring the agony of his burns and the strain of his escape, was determined to hold on. Alina was paralyzed with shock as the Minotaur roared, his voice filled with pain and fury. With a powerful motion, he lifted her into the air with one hand, preparing to slam her down to the ground with a brutal force. As Alina was slammed to the ground with immense force, the impact was devastating, ending her struggle. Her pendant was ripped from her neck and thrown aside, lying in the debris as a silent witness to the chaos. As this happened, the labyrinth fell into an eerie silence. Alina's body vanished, transforming into a ball of tiny lights, leaving only her clothes scattered on the ground. Meanwhile, the Minotaur's battered body throbbed with pain, hissing and smoking as he lay where he had finished his prey. Overwhelmed by his injuries and exhaustion, the Minotaur was unable to move any further, his strength finally spent. All of his efforts to pursue and finish his prey had come at a terrible cost. As the Minotaur lay there, his body began to crack and crumble under the strain. His mighty horns, once symbols of his strength, started to drip with the same burning energy that had ravaged him. Defeated and in agony, the Minotaur gritted his teeth, unable to accept the crushing reality of his demise. In a final act of defiance, the Minotaur roared with all the strength he had left. His mighty cry echoed through the labyrinth, a last testament to his fury and desperation before the darkness consumed him. This was his craving. From the moment he awoke, a thirst as vast as the ocean consumed him. Even with the moisture in his throat, and despite crushing the female warrior, the burning hunger remained unquenched. It was a fierceness akin to anger or hatred, pure, relentless hunger. The Minotaur longed for more and more battles, more enemies to conquer, and more power to defeat them. His insatiable desire for combat and dominance drove him, fueling his every move and leaving him forever unsatisfied. As the Minotaur's body crumbled, breaking down into small pebbles and then turning to dirt, something unexpected occurred. The pendant that once belonged to Alina caught the eye of the goddess Bora. Hearing the Minotaur's desperate wish for more power, Bora decided to intervene. A powerful glow enveloped the Minotaur's body, radiating with divine energy. His severed arms regenerated instantly, and all his injuries, including the countless cuts and burns, healed before his eyes. The pendant, pulsating with intense light, signaled the goddess's intervention. The light represented a blessing typically reserved for humans, a rare grace bestowed by the gods. As the Minotaur's form was restored, the grace granted, accumulated from countless battles, healed not only the Minotaur's physical damage, but also eased the mental strain of his suffering. This divine intervention reconstructed his body, transforming it into something much stronger and more imposing. What was once a normal form now became a more muscular and formidable presence, marked by a ceremonial growth. The labyrinth itself seemed to respond to this transformation, its walls rumbling as if acknowledging the birth of a new and unimaginable monster. A new, more powerful entity emerged from the ruins of the old, a being forged by both divine grace and relentless combat. A new monster was born. From the dungeon's depths came a growl that chilled even the bravest warriors. Emerging from the shadows was a monstrous figure, a minotaur far stronger than any room boss. Its body, a grotesque fusion of man and beast, rippled with muscle and raw power. With sharp, dagger-like horns and eyes burning with insatiable hunger, it was ready for battle. This minotaur sought a worthy opponent to test its limits, eager to claim its place at the top of the food chain. Its roar echoed through the dungeon, a promise of chaos and destruction for anyone daring enough to stand in its way. With its new, powerful body, the minotaur took a deep breath and gripped its hands tightly. It roared out its demand for more fights, more enemies. It craved stronger opponents, warriors, mages, scholars, archers, and even heroes. The hunger in its voice was palpable, an insatiable thirst for combat and challenge. Labyrinths are mysterious spaces found all over the world, known for their vast accumulation of glory and prosperity. They offer incredible rewards, including great wealth, distinguished honor, explosive power, and rare items blessed by the gods. As an adventurer once noted, you can find almost anything you desire within a labyrinth. The newly born minotaur smashed his enemies with his axes, panting with a relentless desire for more battles. He craved more enemies, more fights. Despite the chaos he unleashed, humanity remained unaware of the disaster unfolding in the labyrinth. A beast sprang forth from the very depths of the ground, embodying extreme ferocity and uncontrollable rage. Its raw power and untamed nature made it a force of sheer destruction. With every roar and swing, it wreaked havoc, leaving devastation in its wake. This creature, born from the abyss, was a terrifying embodiment of primal savagery. The beast tore and snapped its defeated enemies with brutal force. However, when it tried to devour its prey, the meat crackled and vanished, transforming into an item drop instead. In the labyrinth, when a person or magical beast dies, their bodies disappear without a trace, leaving only items and coins behind. This was the fate of the defeated enemies, whose remains vanished, leaving the minotaur's stomach to crumble with hunger. Frustrated by his inability to eat, he stomped on the items in anger and roared furiously. Panting with anger, the minotaur questioned what was happening. He had won, yet he was denied the spoils of war meat to satisfy his hunger. As he raged, he noticed something emerging from the darkness, a pack of monstrous wolves. The wolves, enraged, charged at the minotaur, and a fierce battle began. The minotaur roared and swung his weapons, trying to smash the wolves, but they were agile and quick, dodging his attacks. His blows only struck the ground and walls, leaving the wolves to continue their relentless assault. The wolves, incredibly fast, coordinated their attack with precision. One wolf skidded in and bit his legs, while another leaped onto his back, chomping at his skin. They attacked simultaneously with strategic teamwork, jumping from wall to wall with astonishing speed. The Minotaur struggled to defend himself, overwhelmed and unable to mount an effective counterattack. As the wolves continued their relentless assault, the Minotaur roared in pain. Seizing an opportunity, one wolf noticed a vulnerable spot and lunged to bite it, aiming for the exposed area. Blood spat onto the floor as the wolf's teeth sank into flesh. But then, it became clear that the Minotaur was the one who had bitten the wolves. With brute force, he held on tightly, his grip unyielding as he wrestled with the creature. With brute force, the Minotaur easily ripped the wolves apart. Some of the remaining wolves were shocked by the sight, their eyes wide with fear. The Minotaur then turned his gaze toward his remaining prey, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. He began to chomp down on the wolves, but, like the other prey, it vanished and turned into money and potions. The Minotaur, furious, roared in frustration at being denied the spoils of his victory. With the battle resuming, the wolves began attacking again. One potion rolled across the ground, momentarily forgotten amidst the chaos. The Minotaur, still enraged, fought to fend off the relentless assault. As the aftermath of the battle unfolded, only the Minotaur remained. The potion lay flat on the ground, forgotten. The Minotaur, covered in scratches and claw marks from the wolves on his chest, neck, and arms, stepped forward, his frustration palpable. As he recalled the battle, the Minotaur cursed the increasing number of these insignificant foes. He knew he needed more strength, much more. He scanned every corner of the labyrinth, searching for a way to gain the power he craved. He spotted a male adventurer engaged in a battle with wolves. The adventurer, wheezing and preparing for the wolves' next attack, was focused on the fight. The Minotaur, hidden and watching patiently from the sidelines, observed intently. This was the first time he had seen someone else fighting in the labyrinth. The wolves roared and launched their attack on the adventurer. He defended with his shield, his sword clashing against the wolf's claws, but another wolf bit into his shoulder and legs. As the battle raged on, the Minotaur observed the adventurer closely, noting every detail of the fight. With his shield thrown aside, one wolf managed to bite the adventurer's hand. He retaliated by stabbing a wolf, which, as usual in the labyrinth, vanished and turned into coins. The adventurer, panting in exhaustion, faced the last remaining wolves. His hand throbbed painfully and was now nearly unusable as he shakily shuffled his sword to prepare for the final battle. The clash began as the wolves launched its attack at the adventurer. The adventurer shouted and slashed at the wolves, but it evaded and dashed in response. Then the adventurer cast a freezing spell, causing the Minotaur to watch in shock. The adventurer, now preparing his next move, readied himself for the final confrontation. The adventurer strikes the wolf's left eye with his dagger, causing it to stumble and skid across the ground. With a swift final blow, the adventurer finishes the wolves, securing his victory. The wolves glows, vanishes, and transforms into coins and a potion. With his body fatigued and wheezing, the adventurer picks up the potion, pops the cap, and gulps it down. The greatest advantage for adventurers in the labyrinth is the healing potion. Each color offers a different effect. Red potions are used to restore the body and heal wounds, with the added extraordinary ability to regenerate missing limbs. The adventurer sighs in relief as his body begins to heal, but then he notices something unusual. To his horror, he saw the Minotaur standing beside him, staring with cuts and injuries of its own. He was profoundly shocked and questioned why a Minotaur was in such a place, and how it ended up outside the boss room. The Minotaur stared at him intently, then gripped its axe tightly. The adventurer jolts, trembling at the realization that, at his level, he cannot face such an opponent alone. He quickly glances behind him, searching for a retreat route. Carefully, he tiptoes backward, sword pointed at the Minotaur, and then slips into a nearby passage in the labyrinth. Meanwhile, the Minotaur remains still, watching him. The Minotaur follows him slowly, but when it sees the adventurer disappear, it looks at the stairs, puzzled. His injuries and cuts begin to bleed anew, and though he is intrigued by what lies ahead where the adventurer vanished, his body, covered in wounds, craves rest. He turns around and slowly walks back into the dark alley of the labyrinth, each step echoing with a heavy thump. Several days later, in the suburbs of Mycenae, a bustling village near the Sazerdan labyrinth, the streets are alive with activity. Merchants, nobles, and ordinary people crowd around vibrant stalls. Adventurers, including swordsmen and mages, move through the busy streets. This is also the location of the Adventurers Guild. Inside the bustling Adventurers Guild, the atmosphere is lively with the chatter of various adventurers. Some are eating, drinking, and celebrating, while others are at the reception area or examining the request board. Amid the activity, one adventurer sighs in disappointment, questioning the lack of appealing requests and commenting on their unsatisfactory nature. This adventurer is Paja, a well-built level 28 Class C, dressed in traditional tribal costume. When someone calls his name, he looks up to see the guild president. The president informs Paja that he arrived just in time and asks if he would be willing to take on a request he has in hand. Paja and the guild president discuss the request, which involves investigating a peculiar case, a cowhead. The guild president explains that a report from an adventurer mentioned encountering a minotaur on the 10th floor of the labyrinth, outside the boss room. Intrigued, Paja questions why a minotaur would be there, and speculates that the adventurer might have been scared and mistaken it for something else. The guild president admits that he initially thought the same. The guild president continues, adding that the equipment and metal of a D-class adventurer named Elena were found in front of the boss room, torn to shreds by what appeared to be a minotaur's massive claw marks. Furthermore, reports have surfaced about potions and coins being abandoned and scattered across the 10th floor. A rumor is spreading about a strange creature roaming the area, hunting gray wolves monsters, and leaving their item drops behind. Paja reflects for a moment and comments that, while it's not uncommon for adventurers to use up their remaining strength outside the boss room after a fight, he's never heard of anyone purposely targeting gray wolves, as they're typically just a nuisance. Leaving behind item drops is unusual, he notes. The guildmaster explains that while they are calling it an investigation, it's actually a mandatory verification. They need to confirm whether the Minotaur is still in the boss room, and if anything unusual is happening. He adds that this task should be a piece of cake for an exceptional scout like Paja. The guildmaster apologizes, acknowledging that the reward for the task is disappointing. He then asks Paja if he's still willing to accept the request, adding that he was thinking of having him owe Paja a favor in return. Paja smirks in excitement, saying that having a favor owed by the world's guild president himself isn't too bad of a reward after all. Suddenly, someone from the back, overhearing their conversation, steps closer and asks if they could also take part in the task. Paja, slightly shocked by the interruption, looks toward the speaker. The guildmaster turns to see who's speaking and asks what they mean by they. When Paja realizes who it is, he's utterly stunned. It was a team of two, a woman dressed in a mage's outfit and a large man clad in full armor, clearly a tank. They were adventurers Charlia, a level 28 Class C mage, and Raystrand, a level 29 Class C warrior. The pair exuded the aura of a powerful team, leaving an impression of strength and experience. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, Paja tells Charlia to stop joking, pointing out that splitting such a small reward would be a loss for them. Charlia smiles and replies that the entire reward can go to him. In return, she asks if he would simply handle the report himself. She adds that they're happy to join just for the thrill of hunting, and to have the guildmaster owe them a favor as well. Ray asks the guildmaster if it's all right for them to join. The guildmaster responds that as long as Paja is okay with it, they are free to do as they wish. He adds that Charlia and Ray are nearing promotion to B-class, so there are no objections in terms of their merit. Charlia smirks and smiles proudly, declaring, "It's decided then." With a confident gleam in her eyes, she adds that she will surpass the great magic user Gil Lynx himself. The attractive Charlia knows no such thing as a bad reason for lending assistance, she boasts with a flourish. Paja, slightly disgusted by Charlia's self-praise, comments that there are plenty of reasons, starting with the trouble of protecting a conceited woman who calls herself attractive. He doesn't finish his sentence as Charlia pulls out her wand, leaving Paja visibly scared. Charlia, with an ominous expression and a smirk, asks Paja, "Aren't any reasons, right?" Paja, sweating bullets, reluctantly agrees. Charlia, satisfied, says, "Naturally. Let's get going." Paja, whispering to Ray, asks why someone as good-natured as him hangs around such a woman. Ray laughs and replies that she can be pretty cute once you get used to her. As they leave, Charlia pauses and asks the guildmaster what they should do in the unlikely event that something unusual is happening. For example, if the Minotaur were actually found wandering outside the boss room, she inquires about the appropriate course of action. The guildmaster ponders for a moment and then replies that they will need to handle any unlikely events themselves. Depending on what they find, he promises to increase their payment. The scene shifts to the Minotaur, resting and sleeping in a secluded area of the labyrinth, possibly back in the boss room. Its body is covered in numerous bruises and cuts, a testament to the recent battles it has endured. With determination in their expressions, the three adventurers form a party. They set off to track down the injured beast, ready to confront the Minotaur with confidence.